How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3. We're on the run. Apparently, we were going to get our asses drugged. Or our ass drugged. I keep on saying our. Keiichi was going to get his ass drugged. Because apparently, well, a coach, which is also the doctor, does not, he doesn't seem to believe him. He believes that he has lost his damn mind. Which I can see. If you look at it that way, yeah, most definitely, more than likely have lost his mind. Something's afoot, that's for sure. And I did bring up in the end of the last episode, I want to say that maybe everything that we're seeing through the perspective of Keiichi should be taken with a grain of salt. What sort of grain of salt? I have no idea. The pedals clattered under the force. Had my bike always creaked like this? Did the pedals always whine every time I pushed down on them? My bike wasn't the only one crying, though. My tears fell as the wind cut through them. They rode the breeze and scattered behind me. Ugh. I hate this, I hate this. I'm not the crazy one, Hinamizawa is. This feels like Chapter 1, at the end of Chapter 1, when we just didn't trust anyone. We're back to that state, it seems like. How? How dare you treat me like a madman? Die! Die! Just fucking die already! I believed you, I believed you! I'm not screaming, but yeah, I get the point. I'd gone to the hospital in order to escape Rena and Mion's invitation, but the reality that was waiting for me had been too cruel. Who was insane, me or Hinamizawa? Or was the answer something else? I started having trouble breathing. I didn't have any clue what was happening anymore. The loud chirps of the Higurashi were irritating me. Were even the Hinamizawa Higurashi I knew so well calling into the wind? No, that wasn't quite it. And they weren't calling. They were crying. That's the name of the game! The pained wailing of those lost in some kind of rhythm, and another world, no longer able to return to their own sunlight. I didn't do all that to end up in a world like that. And actually, at about this time, I might have been having fun with everyone else. Sadako would have gotten her smile back after realizing her uncle wouldn't ever come home. And she might have shown it to us at our first club meeting in a while. That was the kind of world I wished for. Yeah, I don't think we're getting that back. So what was this? Why did I end up in such a strange, ghastly world? Someone I'd killed was living like normal, and I had enjoyed myself at the festival despite not being there. I don't want it. I don't want this strange world. When did it start to go wrong? When? When? No matter how much I thought about it, I never understood. I rode swiftly and returned to my home. It's raining again. It had begun to rain during my journey back, and just like yesterday, I was now soaked. But I didn't care about something so trivial right now. The pain I felt in my heart that Coach, the one person I trusted, was acting so cruelly was far worse. Did I have no allies in Hinamizawa anymore? With the naive thought that I at least wanted my parents to side with me, I stepped up to the front door. Wait, Keiichi. It'll be dark soon. There's something you want to check, right? Yes. I wanted to dig up the man's corpse and get a look at his back. If there was a tiger tattoo there, I would know beyond a doubt that he was Sadako's uncle. That long night wouldn't end until I was certain. If this insane world was all reparation, all a divine punishment, then I needed to make certain whether I had been successful enough to even deserve to pay that price. I went to the storage room again and got the shovel. It had been washed in the rain, but the paint was peeling, making it look unsightly. I never ever wanted to touch this thing again. The sensation of it in my hands was totally different from the night before. There was a ruthless coldness about it. Yeah, it would be dark soon, so I'd need the lantern too. There would be a little bit of light from the streetlights, but it would get extremely dark. I thought I'd put the lantern here, but I suddenly noticed it wasn't anywhere to be found. Then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Of course. On that night, I hadn't brought the lantern back with me. I'd left it at the place I buried the body. If I didn't go get it soon, it would get very dark. And then, not only would I be unable to find the spot I'd buried the corpse, but I wouldn't even be able to find the lantern itself. If that happened, it was all over. In order to fit the shovel in the basket on the front of my bike, I'd need to twist it and disassemble it. But it looked like there was dirt in the joints, and no matter how hard I pushed, it didn't want to come apart. After a strenuous effort, I realized I couldn't get it apart, so I decided to hold it in one hand and ride my bike with the other. Ah, doesn't that seem familiar? With the downpour soaking me through and a shovel in one hand, and riding one-handed, it was as if I'd returned to that night. No, return was the wrong word. It was more like that night had never ended. The pain of the raindrops striking me were no different from then. The thing that was different was Hinamizawa. The world and nothing else. The rain clouds were already making it dark, and now was about time for the sun to set. I could tell it would only get rapidly darker. The straight road leading to town, in the middle of it, that should be where I buried it. Yes, it was near that streetlight. On that night too, the water from the downpour was splashing down from the streetlight's overhang like a waterfall. The pouring rain was exactly the same as it had been that night, and thus it brought my memories into focus. I left my bike in the brush and stepped into the forest, the ground already soaked with mud. Oh boy. I still think it'd be way better if we just, visited the house, Sotoko's house, and saw if he was there. If he was okay, then we probably killed somebody else. And, well, if he wasn't, then something else is afoot. Where had I buried him? Think. The darkness, the shadows, the water, the mud. Everything was the same. Think. And then I spotted the lantern by a fallen moss-covered tree. That's right, I left it right there. If I left the lantern there, then I would have buried him over here. With the sensation of standing in the sludge, my feet remembered the spot better than my eyes did. I plunged my shovel into the ground. It's hard. It wasn't here. I just dug it up, so it should have been softer. I stick my shovel down in a few spots to test what they felt like. One of them clearly felt deeper. I recalled where the lantern was, where the trees and things were in relation to each other, and knew that it had to be here. Under here slept that man's corpse. There would definitely be the tattoo of a tiger on his back. But if it wasn't there, then I had made a horrible mistake and killed someone completely unrelated instead. Yeah, that would be bad. Like, really bad. Not to say that this was, any better. I would be more dazed by the fact, or at the fact, that Sotoko's uncle wasn't dead than I would regret having gotten someone else mixed up in this. If this insane world was punishment for the sin of committing murder, I wouldn't be able to accept it until I'd killed Sotoko's uncle for good. And then without any fear, I'd attack him again. And that time, I would kill him for sure. But what if the tattoo was there? That would mean I'd killed Sotoko's uncle, but that would be terribly strange. If I'd killed him for sure, then who was the uncle at Sotoko's house this very moment? Impossible. I didn't even know anymore what I was using the word impossible to refer to. I've used the word quite a few times today. If I had to make the words impossible fit just one thing, what would it be? That much was obvious to me. Here's another prediction. There's some sort of force or some entity that was able to pretend that they were Ch.3, right? What if? Now hear me out. What if that strange entity is now morphed into Sotoko's uncle because he needed to be there? Keiichi needed to be at the festival. So whatever force made him be there as a, as to allow the flow of correct events or whatever the fuck. What if that's the same case for Sotoko's uncle? I shouted and then turned behind me. There was nobody there, of course. It hadn't been bothering me for a while, but those footsteps had followed me this entire day. Even just now, an extra set of footsteps had splashed behind me. No one was actually there, no indications of anyone even. But they were there. Maybe it is multiple personality disorder, because he's hearing shit, but there's nothing there. That's right. Or maybe he's just losing his goddamn mind. Thinking back, the first time I heard those footsteps was after Takano-san and I had parted. Those footsteps were my welcome into the strange, inside-out world. No one could be there. I'd get no response. Whoever it was, they just kept staring at me. It wasn't ominous, just unpleasant. I would say it would be both, actually. After staring into empty space for a bit as I bathed in the rain, my illogical anger slipped away. My tension loosened and a tired feeling reared its head. I tasted this feeling that night, too. The sudden exhaustion I felt as the tension in my brain loosened. My vision quickly narrowed, and I felt like everything around me had suddenly gotten darker. Damn, I hate this effect. I couldn't give into the sensation. I would light what little explosives were left in my brain and force myself to keep going. I needed to dig that man up before my stamina ran out. I needed to see the tattoo on his back. I caught my suddenly ragged breath and calmed down. And then I stuck the shovel into the soft, muddy ground again. It felt exactly the same as that night. The sense of digging a hole in the beach, with water coming into it with every wave. What day was today? Had I gone back to the night of Watanagashi? Every strange thought that came to mind tormented me. Given my exhaustion, I didn't think I could manage to hold those thoughts back. Once the hole was deep, all illumination finally faded, blanketing my vision in jet black. It was probably the moment the sun had fully set, too. That night I had feared the worst, and gone without using much light. My senses were so strained that I could see even in that darkness. But now I didn't have that kind of strength left. I drained everything I had last night, and now the darkness would be lethal. I decided to turn on the lantern. Putting it on first setting would make it give off a faint light. Even with how little there was, it was enough, and people wouldn't be able to see it from far away in this rain. I grabbed the chilled lantern, turned the dial with a click, set it to the weakest light setting, and turned it on. And what was there? An uncanny world of silhouettes appeared before me. A complex of strange, shadowy world created by the intricate entanglement of trees and branches. I had only turned on a light, and it was like that was all it took to make the world into something else. I let out a quick, tired breath and wiped the liquid, neither rain nor sweat, from my brow. Then I raised the shovel into the air and slammed it into the mud. That moment, the silhouettes surrounding me ominously all moved at once. Inside my head, something packed in there, something coarse but not hot or cold, was loudly rushing about. The silhouettes were all around me, looking down at me, and one of them, a silhouette bigger than the others, stepped forward. Oh. Konbanwa. Well, we weren't alone. Sorry, just getting a drink. I like to stay hydrated, somewhat. The coarseness in my brain shot through my whole spine and left me at my waist. The strength in my body all left me through my hips, and I crouched down with a splash into the sea of mud I dug myself. Well, that's how we're addressing you. It wasn't only Ushi, but 5 or 6 of them in a row, men wearing raincoats. I had no inkling that this many people had gotten so close. It was like once I turned on the lantern, they just appeared there, sliding out of the shadows.
どうぞ、私たちのことは気にしないでください。森の木立だとでも思って。
I mean, it's kind of what we thought of you as, to begin with. Don't mind them.
そうです。私たちのことは気にされず、どうぞ穴掘りをお続けになってください。こんな時間にこんな土砂降りの中で、そんなにも真剣にやっているんですからね。邪魔なんかしませんよ。心ゆくまで掘っちゃってください。
No, thank you, I said. When I tried to get up and turn around, 2 men blocked that route. And they stood on either side of me and lifted me up with amazing strength, and then threw me into the sea of mud. As I soaked in the mud bath I dug for myself, I looked up at the silhouettes looking down at me. Ushi squatted, picked up my shovel, and threw it at my feet for me. It bounced loudly off the mud and hit me in the face.
ほら、続きをどうぞ。続きを。
I couldn't bear the oppressiveness of the silhouettes surrounding me, and slowly I stuck the shovel into the mud again. I felt like I was digging my own grave. If I kept digging, it wouldn't matter whether there was a tattoo or not, because that man's corpse would appear eventually. It was all over. Surrounded on all sides, had a stroke, and nowhere to go. But I just couldn't figure it out, no matter how much I thought about it. Why were they here? Was it Takano-san? There was only one person who could have made the connection between me and this place. Shit, I knew it. She deserved to die.
手が休んでますよ。
Damn, did we just get punched? Oh no, we got kicked. Ushi kicked me in the back, which took me by surprise, sending me flying into the mud.
ちゃっちゃと掘っちゃってくださいよ。雨の中で待たされる方の身にもなってほしいもんです。
くそ。
Hell yeah.
そんなに雨が嫌なら帰ればいいだろう。
Ushi kicked some mud into my face.
口より先に手を動かしてください。口と手を一緒に動かすのは落語家だけ。
Wow. Wow. What the fuck, dude?
ねえ。
The men around him didn't react, not knowing quite whether they should laugh, but when Ushi glared at them, they started mumbling out pained chuckles. Just who was this guy? I knew the world had changed after that night, but if I went even further back, didn't it start with when this guy showed up? Kinda. That was when our peaceful days had been taken from us. Ever since he showed up in Hinamizawa, things had been odd. Everyone stopped smiling and the world went crazy. The ground under my feet gradually got harder and heavier. At this point, even I started to think something was odd. I hadn't buried him this deep on that night, had I? My exhaustion peaked, and I sat down on the spot.
いつまで掘ればいいんだよ。
最近の若い人は体力がありませんね。
Homie, it's literally raining.
What?
At Ushi's gesture, the men all pulled out their sinister-looking shovels. As I watched dazed, one of them grabbed my collar, dragged me out of the hole, and threw me to the ground. The rest of the men stepped into the hole I dug and started shoveling themselves. As I stared at them dumbfounded, Ushi sauntered over and squatted down to look at me directly.
前原圭一さん、あなたの趣味は雨の夜の穴掘りですかな?
Perhaps. When I didn't respond, Ushi took one of the tin buckets that they were using to bail out the muddy water, scooped up some of it, and splashed the whole thing in my face. Holy shit. Well, I guess I kind of get it, you know, he's He's basically talking with a murderer. Well, he's assuming that he is a murderer, because what else does this really look like?
今日は大雨ですから、これ以上いくら濡れても全然わかりませんね。
Ushi smiled to himself and then scooped up another bucket full of muddy water.
もう一回聞きますよ。あなたの趣味は雨の夜の穴掘りですかな？
そんな趣味のやついるもんか。
Splash. Ushi hit me with another bucket full of muddy water. The pebbles in it stung.
あの穴を掘ると何が出てくるんですかな？私、花坂じいさんのここ掘れワンワンってのが昔から憧れでしてね。
As he spoke, he ran the bucket through the muddy water again, to splash it in my face again.
あそこにどんな宝物が埋まってるんですかね？私にちょっとだけでも教えてくれませんか？
If you want to know, then dig on your own time, you fucking pig. I wasn't saying that out loud, but Ushi mercilessly drenched me in muddy water again anyway. Shit. If only you hadn't shown up, the world wouldn't have gone wrong. Ever since you showed up, things have been strange. Sudako got abused by her uncle. I ended up killing him, and the world went crazy. He was how it all began, because of this culprit. He splashed another bucket of mud in my face. My insides were seething with anger. Die. Excuse me. Well, that ruined it. You die too. If I had some strange power to kill someone by cursing them, like with Takano-san, then you're dead. And it won't be Yoyashiro-sama's curse. It'll be mine. I'll curse you and kill you.
反抗的な目つきですね。これを機に少しそのあたりをお勉強してしまいましょうか。今は平和な時代ですがね。私があなたくらいだった頃は何でも鉄拳制裁が普通でして。
おいさ。
One of the digging men in raincoats wiped some sweat off and called Ushi over. Ushi tossed the bucket away and turned around with an evil grin on his face.
はいはい、何でしょうか。
これを見てください。
Acceptance. Or maybe resignation. I wanted to say to them, so you blockheads finally found it. Yeah, that's right, I'm the one who killed him. But you're the police, so it's your own job to figure out who he is, right? Come on, prove to me that he's really Sodako's uncle.
何ですかこりゃ。
多分古い排水管ではないかと。
What?
あそこの用水路に繋がっているようです。
ぶっ壊しちゃいましょうか。どうせ使ってない缶でしょ。
The men all exchanged glances and then hesitantly broached another topic.
おいさ、もうかなり手応えが固いです。これより深くってことはありえないと思います。
掘る場所を間違えました。
いえ、初めのうちは明らかに掘り返す感触でした。ですがこのくらいを掘った頃から急に硬くなりまして、多分もともと掘った穴よりも深く掘り進んだのだと思います。
So did Keiichi actually kill someone or not? Because it's sounding like he thought he killed someone, but maybe he is losing his goddamn mind.
じゃあつまり何ですか。ここには穴があって何もなくただそのまま埋め直されたと皆さんそうおっしゃるわけで。
What? What were they talking about?
こりゃ参ったな。ねえ前原さん。
Ushi grabbed my collar and dragged me to the huge hole they dug. The mud inside was like an ocean, and I couldn't see any drain pipe down there. One of the men stirred it with a shovel, letting me hear it clang against something hard. There was no doubt I buried him right here, but I hadn't buried him this deep. I didn't dig deep enough to unearth an entire drain pipe. So, then, this man, his corpse, where was it? Proof. Proof that I'd been successful on that night was gone. 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 Then what on earth was I? Was I actually crazy after all? And just possessed by the delusion that I had killed someone? That couldn't be. It was the unmistakable truth. It couldn't have been a hallucination. But now the most important evidence that it hadn't been an illusion was gone. I killed him. I buried him. I had absolute unwavering confidence in that fact. Then, did I fail to kill him? After I left here, had he started breathing again, crawled out, and gone back to Sudako's house? Was that it? No. I had come here to see whether he had a tattoo or not. And yet the truth I unearthed was far more than that. Yesterday, what was I? I killed him. I buried him. There was no doubt. But for some reason he lived and crawled back out. And that was impossible too. I'm so tired of hearing the word impossible over and over. I get it. Dead people don't like to play by the rules here in Hinamizawa. Then I'll kill you as many times as I need to. I'll keep killing you until you never show your face to Sadako again. Ueshi and the others were muttering to each other. Eventually their conversation ended and Ueshi came towards me. What did he want to say? What did he want to do? I stiffened, tensing up, and then Ueshi just ignored me like I wasn't even there and passed right by me. The other men too, they just ignored me and shuffled away. Eventually, there was no longer a sign that anyone was around, and I returned to my quiet world of silhouettes. The only one left there was me. Only the sound of the pouring rain filled up the silence. Well, not really sure what to take on this, or take away from this. Did Keiichi actually kill someone? I don't know. We got a couple tips to look at here. Achievement unlocked, gone, and it's a picture of a shovel. How perfect. I guess let's give these two tips a look here. Who knows what this is? Inquiry request. Okonomiya Police Station Command Center transmission recording, June 20th, 8:08 p.m.
こちら沖宮 PS 感度良好です。
車両ナンバー紹介をお願いします。獅子骨歯の4344。
副将獅子骨歯の4344。少々お時間もらえますがよろしいですか？
お願いします。
Number match, Shishibone H-4344. Owner, who the fuck knows. Address, somewhere in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. Vehicle make and model, who knows. Theft reports, none. Special mentions, nothing of note.
沖宮 PS より大石社どうぞ。先ほどのナンバーが判明しました。大石社どうぞ。大石社、応答願います。あれ？電波、悪いのかな？大石社、応答願。出ませんね。
大石さんが車両紹介？誰の車だよ。
村人の車ですね。至って平凡な。
何者だよ。大石さんが聞いてくるからにはただものじゃないんだろ。
突起事項欄は完全に空欄ですね。S 号指定もなし。減点もなしだし。
バッシングでもされて腹が立ったんじゃないの？あの人根に持つとなかなか忘れないタイプなんだよ。
Yeah, I believe it, especially after the events of this chapter. Such an asshole, really. He said it smelled. He said the food smelled. He said it smelled because I smelled. He said I smelled because I don't take baths. He said to take a bath 3 times a day because I was a smelly person. He said I had to stay in the bath for a very long time, every time. He must be possessed by something too. This is the same thing the man who died said. Why does he know what that man said before? That much is obvious. The same thing that possessed that man is now possessing him. Can't a sudden earthquake make a big hole in front of the house? If it did, he would definitely go and look into it. And then I just have to push him in. I won't give in until I get that chance. I won't give in. I won't cry. I won't give in. I won't cry. Ah, someone is apologizing again. Well, I have no idea what to fucking take away from that either. What the hell? Oh, whatever. Time to continue. For a little more, at least. The body wasn't there. The police didn't arrest me because of that, but I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Sotoko had said, I had failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much, no matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Sotoko, I became a demon, and this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I had fallen into the demon world. But if that price had been in exchange for the life of Sotoko's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Sotoko's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him, I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Sotoko was liberated. I had already awoken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, at just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I'd hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander, and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Sotoko's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I've said it's for Sotoko, or it was for Sotoko, but while actually carrying out the act, I'd completely forgotten about Sotoko, albeit only temporarily. And maybe initially it was for Sotoko's sake, but now I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing, and as a result I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Sotoko, became a demon, and then disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that after all was said and done, I had met the same fate as him. I had tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. And then surprised, I stopped walking. There was the second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing.
お前、ひょっとして、サトシなのか?
The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer. But I felt a strange kind of relief. That there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more, this time we will set Sotoko free for sure. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now, when I'd been out way too late for 2 days now, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes and then take them with me, so I could kill again or kill him again every time he resurrected. I would do it again. I'd kill him again, and this time I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun, even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home, as if nothing had happened. Both me and that other Keiichi Maibara, even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Keiichi Maibara would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Sotoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her Nini. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough.
これは怖いな。こいつにするか。
It was a hatchet made or meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. Well, perfect. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it a little in some old newspaper and tossed it into the basket on my bike.
連日、悪い用事に使ってばかりで悪いな。今日も頼むぜ。俺の足。
I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I've been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way to get to the station since it was far away. So I'd always used it to get back and forth from cram school. I'd only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket too. I'd never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in there. Yeah, who would have ever thought that that would happen? When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever and had some of the greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had to risk my life to do it. And that's how fun those times had been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay. But still, the times I had had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them, a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes, this was a value I decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I'd first come to Hinamizawa, about how on the very first day, Sotoko had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. And that went for Mion, Rena, and Rika-chan too. Wasn't Sotoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Sotoko would try to look cool, and then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. And then Sotoko would cry, which would put Rena in a state of ecstasy. Rika-chan would be greatly delighted, and I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have to have been Sotoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day, just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back.
ナイトなら武器は剣だろ。ツーハンデッドのかっこいいやつ。錆びた肉厚のナタで挑むナイトは、多分古今東西俺一人だな。
And then I saw an old person in the ridge of a field waving to me.
おや？ケイチ君かい。朝のサイクリングかいね。
ohayou gozaimasu!
I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy waving like that? Sotoko's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. Well, there goes that cheerful music. The cicadas had woken up too, and the next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two in the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath and then tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or that I'd killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If that had been an illusion, then that would make all of this Hinamizawa I was in right now an illusion. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident, and I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends in rice paddies like these. That was a terrifying thought, though. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even wield curses. Takano-san had died probably because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Ushi died too, like I'd cursed them to yesterday, then I'd believe it. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I sent it to hell that night, throwing it into the Onagafuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either. We have no way of checking that. The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. If her uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Then I would just have to show myself in, and then wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there. Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison, dulling my actions. But it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped in newspaper. Its weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. Oh, reliable. I hadn't put on my watch, so I didn't know what time it was, but it was probably still a little before 7. Sotoko would probably be awake, preparing breakfast and her lunch. But her uncle would probably still be lazying around in bed. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking, and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Sotoko open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Sotoko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. No, I couldn't do that. That would be like making Sotoko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Sotoko react to that? She would probably try to get me to give up on killing him. I would have to lie somehow to get her to go outside. Sotoko didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur in this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. Oh ho, here we go, and then slowly turned it and pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Sotoko's house hit me. At the entrance, there was a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at them. I could hear a television on somewhere. God damn, this place is messy. Holy shit. And that is a very old TV. Damn, that feels nostalgic just thinking of like watching a TV like that. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it. Meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight, no sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and be hiding, waiting for me? The tension I felt was so thick, so tight that I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. It tightened my grip on it, or I tightened it, and then very carefully took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. And then I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway, and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of a second-story window, It was highly possible that room was his own, and that he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs, quietly climbing without making a sound. I could hear any kind of snoring, or I couldn't. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. Oh shit, we're in the monster house. God damn it. I hate going in there. Like, everything's just wrong in that house. God damn it, how do we get out? It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back to the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about. Completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Sotoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The numbers stamped into the food package read 83-06-20. Well, there's our date. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner and Sotoko's uncle would have been here then. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. Excuse me, that much was true. He had found fault with Sotoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup, and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was lit a flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? Bump. What the fuck? What are these noises? I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room where I was standing, too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that in this house, time had been stopped ever since some moment last night. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom has been active this whole time. I checked in a clothing basket and saw Sotoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it, certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then an electric surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Could she... She couldn't have possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible. But no. In Hinamizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly and then quietly pulled aside the glass door. And what do we see? Hot steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so it went completely white with the steam. And now what do we see? It's still nothing. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was. It's Sotoko. No answer. Sotoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Sotoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as though her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll as she laid there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. And then I dragged Sotoko's small body out of the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die, she'll die. Sotoko's body was lighter than I expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for a cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Sotoko moaned again. Sotoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused, and I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer, during a marathon in gym class or something? I turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked a towel in it. I then took the cold towel and pressed it to Sotoko's forehead. Sotoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns. Right, you would soak the burned spot under running water. And then, could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? No, if it was that sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart, and she'd go into shock. I think I read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. Huh? Oh my god, she was counting. She was trying to count. For whatever reason. What was Sotoko reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words that she kept saying. At that moment, I understood what they were for. People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Sotoko was counting like that. But 5,039? I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. 10,000? Last night her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and it was inedible. Sotoko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables that she'd bought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Sotoko and shouted at her that she never, ever took baths. And then he put Sotoko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted to... Wow. yeah, Mr. Voice Actor, for this line, we're just gonna need you to basically cut your throat. I snapped and exploded. Raising the newspaper-wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force, I could have stomped a hole through them. And then I found the futon in the room I thought to be your uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'd bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the walls here? I smashed into wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose into the air and broken pieces scattered about the floor. Yeah, break the windows too, hell yeah. I smashed all the glass windows too, for good measure. Nice. Nice. After I'd destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Sadako. I went back to the changing room. Sadako was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but I still needed to go to the infirmary one more time. I needed to have a doctor look at Sadako. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on clothing her and decided to carry her in her bath towel. The clinic was close to Sadako's house. It would be way faster to carry her and then to call 119, and get an ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand. Her words sounded clearer than before, and I heard that. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even a little bit. Sadako turned over so she was lying on her face and then put a weak struggle to get up on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. It didn't hurt one bit to carry Sadako. She was light, too light. The lightness actually made me uneasy. Okay, we're going to end the episode there, because I feel like things are really going to get wild as we continue on here. I don't know what's going to happen. Things seem to just be taking thousands of turns, but I can finally say that that second tip that we read there a little bit ago, that was most definitely related to Sadako, but definitely some questions about how that was all worded. Very confused by a lot of that, and I gotta wonder what's going through her head right now, seriously. What an episode. What a chapter so far, in all honesty. But thank you all for watching this one. If you all enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz. I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode. I guess we'll figure out what we're gonna do with old Sadako here. Hopefully she doesn't die. You know, that wouldn't be good. Well, anyways, take it easy, guys. See you next time.